absolute bloodline. Yeah, she was
So
much closer.
just pause there. The Diana thing. I know that everyone back on YouTube is going to really want to know this. Can you just give us what the fuck happened with that Diana stuff?
Well, the whole Diana thing was very suspicious. Now, to put this into context, I'd just gone on the record in 1997 and spent 7 days in the headlines saying all sorts of stuff about the intelligence services that was enormously embarrassing to them. And on the Saturday, they took out an injunction against us. And that was my plan, because I knew then it would make the case more popular, and indeed in those days newspapers were not like they are now. They were interested in that kind of stuff, and it was going around the world. People are fascinated by what goes on in Britain, they're fascinated by MI5 and MI6. So I go to bed happy thinking it's all going to plan. Next morning I get up, put the telly on, there's a documentary about Princess Diana at 8 o'clock in the morning. What's going on here? And then at the end of the I remember this really clear, I was watching the documentary, at the end of it she goes, La Princesse Diana est morte aujourd'hui. Princess Diana died today. And it was like, oh, fuck me, Princess Diana's gone and died. That's completely kiboshed all my plans. All the things you think you can deal with, what they're going to do, you can never factor that into your plans. Now, I'm not saying they murdered Princess Diana to knock her out of the headlines, but if you wanted to plant a murderer, that was precisely the right moment to do it. And they always like to kill two birds with one stone.
Where it was strategically placed in the underpass and everything.
Yeah, I mean, there's all sorts of weird stuff around it, including elevated levels of carbon monoxide in Henri Paul's blood, who was the driver of the car. There was never a proper investigation to start with. There has been an investigation now, but it hasn't got to grips with things. There's a white Fiat Uno, which a witness saw bumping into the black Mercedes, and that may be what knocked the guy into the pillar. That white Fiat Uno has never been properly traced.
Well, wasn't it? The 13th
it was the 13th, but I don't think you can preconceive that. I think that's God showing you patterns are going on, basically.
So, in summarise of the Diana, is it an assassination?
Yeah, it was an assassination. There's various theories about why that happened. I don't think it was done by MI6 though, I think it was done by Mossad. Because Diana was about to go out to Palestine, and wherever she went, she had the world's media behind her. Now the treatment by the Israelis or the Palestinians is absolutely appalling. It is barbaric and inhumane. And she, of course, was going to have the mainstream media there photographing all this stuff. Now there's no way the Israelis and the Zionists could tolerate that, so they bumped her off. There's also the idea as well that she was pregnant. We can't know one way or the other because her body, before it was sent back to Britain, was embalmed, which is again against the law. She should have come back so they could do a second autopsy in Britain. But once it's been embalmed, you can't test for pregnancy, basically.
Okay. So what are the implications if she was pregnant?
Well, obviously she was going out with Dodi Al-Fayed then. He was a Muslim. And as we were saying about the bloodline, the Zionist king was going to be William or Harry. They couldn't tolerate the idea that the Zionist king would have a Muslim half-brother, basically. It's not part of their plans. And of course there'd be all sorts of confusion with how Diana would then stay close to the boys and influence them. So they couldn't take the Zionist king being influenced by Arabs and Muslims. And when I talk about the Zionist king, this is the Zionist king who's envisaged in the protocols of the Elders of Zion. Now some people will tell you that is a forgery, and my question to that is, a forgery of what exactly? There's got to be a forgery. There's got to be a forgery of something, hasn't it? It's not like a load of nice Jewish bankers got together and said, hey, we're going to save the world and look after everybody, and somebody created a forgery saying, no, they're a bunch of bastards. Not like that at all. And again,
coffee.
Yeah, coffee would be great.
Coffee?
Yes, please, yeah.
Oh, yes, please, mate.
And my information again with this is that the protocols are not the actual minutes they took in that meeting, because these people don't keep minutes because that leaves a paper trail. But nevertheless, one of the agents of the good side was in there. He faithfully recorded what was discussed at that meeting and published it. Those are the protocols of the Elders of Zion. And anybody who doubts these things everybody thinks these things are false, just look at what it predicts and what happens. They talk about control through the money supply using recessions and depressions. We saw that throughout the 20th century. Control the media through using off-the-record sources and so on, tame editors. That happens. And it just goes on. Like, they didn't mention vaccinations. They mentioned Darwinism. Because again, if you think about Darwinism, Darwin's theory of evolution is one of gradual change and species changing into one another, basically. But there's no evidence of the fossil record for that. The fossil record, in fact, shows the opposite. It shows periods of stability, then about 2 or 3 periods of enormous change on the planet in which life is almost totally wiped out. And if you look at the work of people like Lloyd Pye, he will tell you that, in fact, the Earth prepares itself for these new creatures beforehand, and that to me is evidence of conscious Gaia, basically, that there's intelligent design going on. So Darwin's theory of evolution, there is evolution on the planet. Obviously I'm not supporting biblical creationism as it's literally interpreted. There is evolution on the planet, but nothing like Darwin envisaged, basically.
I think, steps through evolution. I think physical evolution Darwin could have had something through the physical side of the bodies,
Yeah.
but not consciousness, because it is completely a one-sided argument. It's like you're born, you live, you die, that's it, and the amount that it ignores is colossal.
Yeah. And how can you judge from physical data the state of consciousness in any society? We talk about the period from about 400 AD to 1000 or 1066 back in this country is the Dark Ages. But this is because they didn't have a written culture. And some of the artifacts they found are sublime. They show a very high level of knowledge of art and ability to work metals and so on. So, we cannot predict the consciousness or guess the consciousness of any culture just based on physical objects.
Why are they so into symbolism? The symbolism seems to be like really sort of like their mainstay. It's everywhere.
Symbolism is important to them partly because they can communicate with each other in secret using symbols. But symbols also have a power from the sacred geometry of the universe. The reason a pentagram has a power is it represents a state of formation of the universe. The dark side will tell you that if you invert a pentagram, it becomes evil. That is not the case. They've tried to imbue it with evil. But again, anybody who knows about love knows you can turn that darkness round for simple meditation. And in fact, what the pentagram is showing you first when it's upright is a creature with 2 arms, 2 legs and a head, therefore connected to God, but immortal. When you turn it upside down, you have a creature that becomes disconnected from God with 2 heads, 2 arms and a penis, so it has to reproduce, basically. And what we're now moving towards, obviously, is the hexagram. The 6 point is done from connected to God, and we've got reproduction, which is what we're in the state we're in now, basically.
Okay, so that's why the symbol of the 6-sided star is used so much in the Kabbalah to represent so many different levels of reality.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. To go on the construction of the universe, we all know there's a Big Bang, and the reason there have been cataclysmic changes on this planet, everything is fractal, so those patterns of the universe are then play out at different levels, yeah. In the universe, there was the flash of creation, but then there are 2 not so big flashes after that. We changed from just the 4 worlds into the 7 chakras, and then another one that changes onto the tree of life in Kabbalah, which is 10 consciousness with 11 not attached. And what's about to happen in 2012 is we're about to go through the biggest change the universe has seen since a God without form took form, basically. And we're about to go to a construction which will be 12 around the one, so 13 consciousnesses. But to depict it on the page now requires 3 dimensions. So if you want that 3 dimensions, you can see how complex it's all becoming at the other end.
2012 is really symbolic for them as well. The year, the Olympics, where the Olympics is in Stratford. A lot of the roads running off for it have all symbolic names.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me the slightest. They play with it, and everybody will tell you that the logo for the London Olympics, when you rearrange those funny blocks, comes out as Zion. And what other people haven't seen as well is when they put the Olympic flag up, just with the circles, they had London 2012 underneath. They had this thing unfurling through the last 2. Now, that looks like a Z. It's got a line through it, it's like a Z. You go back to the 1, that's the I. The 0 is the O, and it's below the N of London, so it spells Zion backwards as well. So this is more than any kind of coincidence. But again, people see that as evil, but in fact, the irony is Zion itself is good. It's one of the names for the flash of creation. Zion is also the process we're about to go through in 2012, when the world ends and a new world is formed, basically. And because everything
is not destroyed, this world is not destroyed 2012, is it? It's
nothing in the universe is ever destroyed, it changes. The 7 chakras are still there even though we're living on a tree of life. The 4 worlds are still there even though we're living on a tree of life.
You mean it's a spiritual transformation rather than a cataclysmic?
Well, it depends what you mean by a cataclysm. The universe is all consciousness. It's the expression of the consciousness of one being, which you may choose to call the universe, which means the one way, or we may choose to call God. But nevertheless, this is consciousness. This is Gaia's consciousness in lowest resonance. Yeah? There's no mystery about the separation of spirit and matter. Matter is just simply dense spirit, basically. So therefore, what will change the least is the most dense consciousness. And the world will look, broadly speaking, the same, but the way we relate to it will be completely different. We'll be able to plug into past lives, we'll be able to remember them like we can remember our current lives. We'll have all things like telepathic communication, but most crucially, we will join the immortals. This is the realm of the dead. Once you understand that, the Egyptian Book of the Dead, the Mexican Book of the Dead, make much more sense. The Hades, the underworld, Sheol, the underworld. They're not talking about a world below this, they're talking about this world, basically.